Hi there, thanks for joining my poster presentation. My name is Teresa Pham and I'm from Western University. My poster is entitled, Are Children Performing Better on the Digit Span Backward than Forward Task? An Exploratory Analysis. Digit span measures are typically used in research and clinical practice to measure memory. Digit span performance is typically based on the longest number of digits correctly recalled. The two digit span tests that I will focus on today are the digit span forward and backward test. In the forward test, the child is asked to immediately repeat a series of digits in correct serial order, whereas in the backward test, the child is asked to repeat a series of digits, but in reverse order. Given the differences between task demands, the digit span forward test usually results in a longer span length than the digit span backward test. But SLPs are reporting that the reverse is sometimes happening when they're testing children on the digit span test from the Test of Integrated Language and Literacy Skills, or the TILS. As depicted on this table here are two reported cases of percentile ranks, and as you can see, the digit span forward test has very low percentile rank scores compared to the backward test, which has very high percentile rank scores. Therefore, in order to help SLPs understand their observations, we conducted the current exploratory analysis. In this study, we looked at the psychometric properties of the digit span task compared to other measures of the TILS. We looked at the pattern of performance to determine whether children are commonly scoring higher on the digit span backward than forward task compared to other patterns. And finally, we looked at how scores mapped onto span length itself. We were able to conduct this study by reanalyzing the normative data from the TILS. We thank the authors of the TILS for providing us with the normative sample. So in this study, 1,258 participants ages 6 to 14 completed all 15 subtests of the TILS, including the digit span forward and backward tasks. First, a review of the psychometric properties resulted in us finding that the digit span task had fewer total items compared to other subtests of the TILS. Fewer items mean that percentile ranks are more sparsely estimated. And as you can see on this figure, with raw scores on the x-axis and percentile ranks on the y-axis, the two lines for digit span, the pink and the yellow, increase more steeply compared to the other gradual increases of percentile ranks for other subtests. This means that one trial correct or incorrect can move the child from the 25th percentile to above the 50th percentile, which is above average. Next, we subgroup performance into different groups depending on whether they had a higher backward score, forward score, or equal score. So as you can see on these two graphs using standard and raw scores with a 3-point margin, the majority of children had an equal score, or there was no difference between the two span scores. Although it seems that the higher backward score occurs as commonly as the higher forward score using standard scores, this was rarely the case using raw scores. So 0.4% of children received a higher score, indicating that this was very rare. Finally, we looked at how scores mapped onto span length itself. So we were able to estimate span length for 70 children based on the last item correct. For 20 participants, raw scores, standard scores, and percentile ranks indicated a higher backward score. But for the majority of those 17 participants, span length was still longer for the forward than backward score. So you can see on this graph, the percentile rank, for example, shows an advantage for the backward span task, but when we're looking at span length, it's still the forward span that's longer than the backward span. In conclusion, it seems that the perception of higher backward than forward score is likely a reflection of the scoring metrics of the TILS. It is very uncommon for children to have a higher backward score, and in fact, the majority of children had an equal score or no difference between the digit span scores. Finally, even in cases where most scores indicate a higher backward score, span length was still longer for the forward than backward tasks. Therefore, we caution clinicians against overinterpreting the data and not to be misled by higher backward scores mapping onto span length itself. Thank you for listening to my talk, and I look forward to seeing you at the poster event.